Dr. Mostert, good afternoon to you. You write that unless urgent reforms are implemented to attract foreign investment and improve the ease of doing business, we're in trouble. Where would the priority be in terms of reform implementation?
Well, Jeremy, from our perspective as students of the future, we're always interested in encouraging the government to think about the longer term. And unfortunately, what we're seeing at the moment is a scurrying around in the current dilemma. And of course, the government has an enormous difficulty here, managing the current crisis. But what we'd like to see a lot more of is firstly on a sort of social psychology level, to give people hope that there is indeed a future, which there inevitably will be, but its quality needs to be better described, and then to start introducing some mechanisms that move us towards that hope that we're hoping they will describe. So generally speaking, for example, we say to senior decision makers, spend about 20% of your intellectual energy on the past, 30% on the present, and at least 50% of the future, given that that's the only place you could possibly go. At the moment, we're seeing, of course, a crisis response to some degree necessary, but a fumbling in the sense of losing some of that vision for the future. Where could we start? Well, I've indicated that cash flow is one of those massive dilemmas. We already know that in terms of household savings, of course, we're close to zero, if not negative, in South Africa. In terms of small business, once heralded to be the savior of the unemployment dilemma, in North American terms, only about 17% of businesses can survive a 2-month lockdown. In South Africa, it's as low as 6%. Large corporates have some cash reserves, but of course, those have now been eroded because of the massive disruption from Corona. So it's a short-term survival game, but it must be done in the context of the future, Darren.
And difficult to do that, and you've touched on it yourself, to think about the future when you're fighting a massive fire in the present.
That is so, but one of the things that we're curious about when we investigate the future is what are those typical patterns of behavior and how likely are those patterns of behavior likely to perpetuate themselves. And so in some of the scenario work that we did, where we looked at the likely behavior of society in relation to the likely behavior of the virus, we threw the government behavior in there and thought, what are those patterns and what are they likely to be in the future? And part of that included that government's really very skilled at a policy level. But really, unfortunately, when it comes to implementation, there's an awful lot of fumbling. And we've seen that pattern, unfortunately, repeating itself, focusing on minutiae, when in fact a description of the future. And let us be bold. The truth is we need a revisitation of the new National Development Plan. That's where we're seeing the gap at the moment. No real long-term vision.
Just in conclusion, you also say that the key to recovering in terms of the job market is attracting foreign direct investment. But all well and good, us and the rest of the world, we've got to join the queue, haven't we?
Well, it depends on the option. So the option for South Africa is that consumer spending is not going to get us out of this. We simply, as I've indicated, don't have the cash reserves, neither in household savings nor in small business resilience. And so our only real hope as a small open economy is to engage very actively with the international community, and that must include an orientation that is external. And so for us, one of the encouraging things, if one is allowed to say such a thing, of Corona is an international perspective, the idea that South Africa is in fact exposed to international threats, but also opportunities. And so because we cannot only look inward, an international perspective, which I hope will arise and develop, is really our only hope.
And I thank you for joining us, Dr. Morné Mostert from Stellenbosch University.